Hey everybody, it's me, Scott the Waz. Do you guys remember back in the good old days when people were fear-mongering about video games all the goddamn time, and how, like, people were saying, every single copy of Doom sold turns a random Dylan in a classroom throughout the country into a maladjusted incel John Wick. You remember those days? Because I remember those days very vividly. It's almost like it was literally just a few days ago this week in 2021. I fooled you, it's happening still, God help us. There is a firestorm on Twitter right now surrounding 6 Days in Fallujah, a video game that Hello, Chris Raygun here. Well, of course I can cut to that scene that I planned for a completely different video, but I lost all the footage because my computer died. Now I'm gonna stick it in here. Whoops. Now, before we get into the juicy drama of this Twitter brouhaha, I'm gonna have to make something clear to you guys. I am currently hacking you, literally single-handedly destroying your life as we speak. Oh, got all your information. Well, those are some interesting subreddits. Okay, I know where you live now. I'm gonna send you a Hawaiian pizza every single day until the day that you die. And it's not gonna be a good pizza. It's gonna be Hawaiian. No cheese, no sauce, just pineapple and bread. You deserve it. Now, isn't that a situation you'd love to avoid? Well, guess what? You can avoid it entirely with ExpressVPN. Without a VPN, your data is just open to everybody, like a trusting little kitten in a gutter somewhere. Oh, how cute, how precious, how adorable. With ExpressVPN, though, that kitten is ugly, ragged, scary, downright petrifying to tell you the truth, and that's exactly what you want. Ain't nobody gonna want to go near that, except you, because you got a primal bond. That's why I use ExpressVPN, because I want my private shit to remain private, you know what I'm saying? Fortunately for me and my community college dropout level of intelligence, it's pretty simple to use. Just open it up and click to connect. Find out how you can get 3 months of ExpressVPN for free by visiting expressvpn.com/raygun or clicking the link in the description box below. But not only is it a shield, guys, you can get access to all sorts of restricted content on the internet. You'd be surprised. Just changing the country you're from just completely opens up a brand new amount of, like, entertainment and shit. I've seen television shows I didn't even know about. New Girl? What will these Americans think of next? So make sure your privacy is and unlock some cool new content by clicking on the description box below and clicking my link. ExpressVPN. Thanks a lot, guys, for sponsoring this video. And now I think is about the time to get shit seamless editing. Perfect flow. So as I was saying before I was so kindly interrupted, people are losing their collective shit right now on the internet over Highwire Games' new title, 6 Days in Fallujah, a tactical military shooter based on the real-world Battle of Fallujah in 2004. Obviously taking place during the war in Iraq. Now, if this was your average, people are angry on the internet type story, I wouldn't be covering it here. I wouldn't be making a video about it. This isn't the quartering. I don't go after every single menial disagreement that people have online. I don't got the time for that. I'm just genuinely fascinated by this game because the outrage over 6 Days in Fallujah is nothing new. This game was actually canceled back in the late 2000s by, right-wing Fox News boomer types who were flipping a shit about it because it was too soon and too realistic.
Well, there's a lot of controversy over this new video game called 6 Days in Fallujah. Critics are calling the game, which is based on one of the deadliest battles in Iraq, too realistic.
The whole project began because a number of Marines who fought in Fallujah came to us after the battle and started telling us these amazing stories of what happened there. It was an opportunity for more people to find out.
Yeah, obviously you knew, though, that you might get some blowback on it because some people lost their children in that battle.
Real people died here, so it shouldn't be represented in a video game. Because as we all know, video games have never represented real-world battles before 6 Days in Fallujah, as any educated person would tell you. Man, it's easy to forget just how cancel-happy the right wing is, because we usually associate that behavior with SJWs now. No idea how that happened. I have no fucking clue, guys. I swear. Seriously, though, back in the late 2000s, the game pissed off right-wingers and military families, even though the game was developed in, cooperation with military personnel who were actually present in the Battle of Fallujah, but, whatever, nothing matters. The snowflakes of the Midwest ultimately got what they wanted, and the original developers behind the title, Atomic Games, were forced to cancel the project after their publisher pulled out in fear of, backlash and all the controversy that was surrounding the title. Now, in 2021, the same exact video game gets resurrected and is now pissing off games industry neoliberals for opposite yet similarly moralistic and holier-than-thou reasons. IGN ran a story that showed the public what the game was, showed some gameplay, some developer interviews, literally just IGN doing their job and informing the public about a game in development. People on Twitter calling the game pro-American military propaganda, claiming it underplays the atrocities committed by US forces in an effort to demonize brown people. But the most interesting take that I found came from Kotaku, a website that I have no problems with whatsoever, I assure you. You don't have to run the exclusive reveal for the War Crime game by Ethan Gach. Hey, where have I heard that name before? PAX cancels controversial host's live podcast, Won't Say Why, by Ethan Gach at Kotaku. Oh, Ethan. Don't keep it up. Awful job. I'm not proud of you. 6 Days in Fallujah may end up being a critical look at the myriad ways people suffered during the battle, and at whose hands. But time and time again, the game's shooter marketing has cut against that possibility. Everyone can and should interrogate how the game is shown, whether it should even exist, and what it ends up being. See, you are absolutely free to grill 6 Days in Fallujah in any number of ways that you feel is appropriate. I have a number of criticisms of the game myself. The character models, for one, look weirdly cartoony for a game about fucking Iraq. The devs are promoting the game as a playable documentary, and it's been built that way since its original development cycle over a decade ago.
Sensing a backlash, the game's publisher last month abruptly dropped out of the project. But Atomic Games is pressing on, with the aim, they say, of creating an experience that is part game, part documentary.
So obviously people are going to criticize this game's attention to historical accuracy more than they would, a Call of Duty game that's not billing itself as a playable documentary. Fair enough, I understand where that criticism is coming from. It could very well be insensitive and oversimplistic. 6 Days in Fallujah might trivialize the lives who were lost, and might even be purely pro-US propaganda. That is a very real possibility. I don't know. I haven't played the game yet, and neither has anybody else for that matter. But is that enough to say that it shouldn't exist when games like Hatred exist? A game that's literally just a mass shooter power fantasy. Look, my philosophy on this is just let people make whatever the hell they want to make, and if something really is completely devoid of merit, or just purely beyond the pale of what is truly acceptable, then I think that'll be reflected in how well the game does. I'm sure we would all universally agree that a general game is not a good thing. Most of us would agree. But nobody would have given a damn about Hatred had it not been for the spotlight the media shined on it with its outrage clickbait. And honestly, from what I've seen of 6 Days in Fallujah, it just looks like another modern military shooter whose controversy is in all likelihood much ado about nothing. The procedural generation tech looks kinda neat, and the sound design is actually pretty great, but the gameplay looks really stiff and removed from the greater context of its narrative. It just looks generic and kind of uninteresting. And I have a lot of respect for a lot of the people working on the game. Marty O'Donnell is one of my favorite composers of all time. He's done amazing work with the Halo series and the original Destiny game, and there are other ex-Bungie devs in that studio, and if you couldn't tell by now, I'm a huge Bungie fan. But even with my bias, I'm seeing a game that looks wholly unremarkable. I don't know, but these critics, man, the people who are worried that this is going to brainwash an entire generation of kids into being Islamophobic or racist, they're doing themselves a massive disservice when they essentially market the game for the developers. This game will sell way more than it otherwise would have purely because it makes people upset. I saw a change.org petition going around calling for the cancellation of this game, which, by the way, stop doing change.org petitions. How long has change.org been around, and how many times have these petitions done anything? Fucking zero. Stop it. Change.org doesn't do anything. But there's a change.org petition going around, and people are signing it, trying to get this game canceled, and it's being shared by a lot of games industry people, some people that I respect a great deal. Even one of the lead level designers or something, one of the developers of the new Batman game, I think Gotham Knights, shared it around trying to get this game canceled, and I'm like, what are you doing? Stop Highwire Games and Victura from normalizing the mass murder of Iraqis. This was an international war crime that included the mass murder of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis and the displacement of even more. Bombing, shooting, and humiliating the Iraqi people is being normalized in this sick video game, which will also inevitably breed a new generation of Mass shooters? Ugh, oh my god, that gave me indigestion. And brainwash gamers into thinking racism is okay. Okay, first of all, we don't need video games to teach us that racism is okay. We already have King Batch. Secondly, we know for a fact that video games don't turn people into mass murderers. This is not a debate. This is not open for discussion. This is not open for debate. This is not a conversation that needs to take place. This has been happening for the last 20 years, it feels like. Stop it. Study after study after study disproves this bullshit. This isn't real. You're making this shit up. This is Jack Thompson era nonsense, and I don't feel nostalgic for that time at all. I don't know, guys. As a video game, and by extension just an expression of what the developer wants to do, artistically speaking, I just think it has a right to exist. You know, however responsibly or irresponsibly it handles the subject matter at hand. It's just a principle of mine. Because what's going to happen when some other developer out there goes, hey, you know what, I want to make a game about the US from the Iraqi perspective that showcases, you know, the humanitarian offenses perpetrated by the US military, or like, I want to make a game that's a critique of the military-industrial complex using a real-world battle in Iraq. The second that developer wants to make that game, Fox News is going to be pulling the same type of shit that these guys are pulling on 6 Days in Fallujah. And they won't have a principled leg to stand on. All they'll be able to say is, well, we want to make the game. And, well, guess what? So does Highwire. This is just freedom of expression to a T. This is just a principled conversation here. And for the same reason I think it wouldn't be fair for that hypothetical game to be canceled, I don't think it's fair for this game to be canceled. That's not the industry that I want in video games. I want a fighting game where I can play as Muhammad and fight Jesus Christ until he's like bleeding on the ground, screaming and crying. I want to play Riley Reid Simulator 2022 on my Nintendo Switch. Why can't I do that? The freer people are to express themselves, I think the better off we are. And, you know, there are more perspectives than just one. You know, this is the Marines' perspective, and, you know, let that exist. If somebody were to come out and say, like, hey, that Iraqi perspective isn't allowed to exist, well, then guess who's going to be on your side? Me. Because I would be genuinely curious to see that game as well. Although, to be quite frank, hopefully it looks a little bit less generic than 6 Days in Fallujah. And that's going to be it for me today. Sorry it's taken me a long time to make stuff. My computer died earlier this month, and as you all know, getting computer parts in 2021 is painful. But, you know, I'm working on it. I'm trying. For those who might not be up to date, I do several podcasts. I do Sacred Symbols every week. I do the Snark Tank every week. We got a Patreon in the description. We got music on Spotify. I've been a busy boy, guys. I'm a juggernaut. So check out the links in the description. Be sure to check out ExpressVPN. Obviously, they're a great help to the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next video, which will hopefully be pretty soon, even though I'm editing from my laptop as I wait for my, you know, computer to be fixed. Now, I'm going to go get on the phone with my legal team about this bullshit.